you're going to get different opinions of what Walt was really like from each individual, because Walt treated all of us at our level. He never talked down to us. He always talked to us about what our interests were. He was just a sweetheart in that area. And of course, I had heard stories about what he was like in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, before I got there. And there was a lot of nicknames for Walt. We had kind of cute. If he came in grouchy, they would say, he's got the bear suit on today. If he was happy, he was Old Yellow Shoes, which meant Mickey. And so the word was always out when Walt came in of what mood he was in.
You come in and say, well, who's got the wig this morning? The wig referred to the fair-haired boy. And because overnight it could change, and you'd have a meeting where your work was passed. He liked it, but he never complimented you directly, And but you could tell that he liked it and wanted you to do more of it and more something or other. By the next morning, he'd come into work, oh boy, I'm going to have a lot of fun, and you'd find out, no, he threw that whole sequence out after you left.
I got 3 raises on Pinocchio because he liked what I was doing, and I couldn't believe it. But he did say to me one time, I was loafing out in front of his office talking to one of the secretaries, if you can believe I was so stupid. And he came out of his office and he says, say, I like those Pinocchios you're doing. And I said, gee, well, I'm just trying to do them like the other guys, And he says, I don't give a damn where you got it, just keep doing it, and walked off. And of course, by that afternoon, why, everybody in the place knew that he liked my Pinocchios.
It'd be more like he'd be in a meeting, with my boss, Roger Brogy Sr., and he'd say, Bobby, do you know what we need? And you'd see that little mischievous twinkle in his eye and an eyebrow go up. And he'd start to describe something to do with a feature or an attraction that he wanted. And at that moment, your brain would start racing. You'd see all the possibilities in your mind just from the few words that he had said.
He always encouraged your personal originality, always. And he always had the feeling that there was always something more there. And we were always willing to give what we had. He was a magical man in every sense of the word. I mean, it's to step back in time. I mean, his presence alone. I mean, in a room, it electrified everybody. I mean, he created excitement almost immediately.
And we'd hear him because he'd be coughing coming down the hall. And he'd say, oh, here he comes now, and everybody would be braced for him. And then we'd come in, but the minute he'd sit down, he said, well, what you got? He was one of the guys. He just was one of the people. And he would sit there looking at things and intensely listening to it. And then he would plus things. Every once in a while, he'd get up and he'd go to a storyboard and he'd turn a picture down. He said, no, this doesn't work, but if you put this one over here, and he'd switch things around and make it work better, he'd plus it and plus it. Inspiring everybody. I mean, it was really an amazing thing. And there was always somebody in the back taking notes because he talked very fast. And it was an inspiration to everyone. I mean, when he walked out, everybody was exhausted. He'd always walk out and people were going, ah. But by the same token, they were all inspired, itching to get to work and make it changes and better.
You also found that if Walt really had a strong idea and you opposed it, then you might be in a certain amount of trouble. It was far better he would then really stick to his idea. But if you played around it and threw in other suggestions, then he was very, very malleable to those suggestions. But eventually it had to go through this brain and fit his idea of a picture.
And Walt turns to me and he said, I didn't see any problems, do you, Peter? I said, well, yeah, there are problems. What problems? What problems? In other words, what I should have said was, there might be problems, but boy, we can solve them, sir. He expected you to always be gung-ho. He didn't always get it from me. I was a disappointment to him.